You never hear any political party talk about this, or hardly, certainly no major one. I don't hear the wokers talk about it. I don't hear any of them talk about it. This exchange of non-existent theoretical money called credit for real wealth and resources has sucked the wealth of the world into the hands of the few. Why are governments borrowing money from private banking systems and the population paying interest upon that borrowing? Why aren't the governments issuing their own currency interest-free and lending it to the population interest-free to go about their commerce and go about their lives, creating opportunities and choices that they wouldn't otherwise have? Why are we allowing a privately owned, in the end by a tiny few people, banking system to issue non-existent credit money and then be able to take the wealth of the people if they don't pay it back? And there's another thing on this. The same people that lend the money, the credit, dictate if the economy goes up or the economy goes down. Thus, they can lend lots of money and there's a boom. And then they can crash the economy and people can't pay back the wealth, the loans that they took out for no fault of their own, not because they're sitting on the side of the street saying, I'm not going to work. They want to work. The economy's knackered. So what happens then? Those that have lent the non-existent credit and crash the economy can then suck up all the wealth that was put as collateral for the non-existent money. Now, what we're going to see in relation to what I've just said is a frenzy of repossession of properties. A frenzy. If people want to focus on how we get our freedom back, then private banks lending money at interest, non-existent money called credit, has to end, or at least it has to be an add-on. We need a system, not a communistic system, but a system where governments are able to issue the currency interest-free. Because you say to people, how is money created? And they say, oh, the government does it. Well, almost entirely it doesn't. Money comes into circulation by private banks lending credit. And when they lend lots of credit, then there's the opportunity for lots of economic activity. And when they squeeze the credit, what did they say in 2008? A credit crunch. When they squeeze the credit, they're taking out of circulation units of exchange, and economic activity cannot take place, and so we go into a recession. Changing the banking system, taking control of our economic lives, our livelihoods, our choice out of the hands of private banks, that would change everything on the level that we are talking about. But no one ever talks about it politically. Why? Because Britain is a one-party state. We have a one-party state Labour Party, a one-party state Conservative Party. In America, you have a one-party state Republican Party, a one-party state Democratic Party. And these one-party groupings, all these major political parties, are ultimately controlled by the same network that controls the banking system. And because of that, the politicians controlled by those people are not going to challenge the banking system controlled by those same people. Whenever I've talked to politicians about how money's created, not one of them has been able to tell me. I've asked economists, some economists I've met over the years, how was money created? They didn't bloody know. They're economists. It's the private banking system issuing non-existent theoretical money called credit. That's the whole basis of it. And if I demanded that someone take from me money that doesn't exist, or I tried to give people money that didn't exist, telling them it was real, I'd get frickin' arrested. They'd say that's counterfeit money. But banks can make loans of credit which has never, does not, and will never exist except in theory. And they don't get arrested. They become the 1%. And that's how they've done it. That's how they've done it. That's how a few have accrued the wealth of the world. And so if Black Lives Matter, or anybody's lives matter, want to make a real difference to people's lives, they should be campaigning for the transformation of the world financial system and the end of private banks, ultimately controlled by the same people if you go deep enough, literally dictating the economic choices of closing in on 8 billion people.